Hello, I'm Andy McNab, and the one question that constantly comes up is when have I been most scared? And actually people will think it would be the experience that I had in Iraq when I was captured and put into Abu Ghraib prison. But actually it's not. It was something that happened in Northern Ireland, where it wasn't the fear that you would think in a traditional way, getting shot at or fighting. It was actually the loss of control and trying to regain it. I served for 2 years in an organisation called 14 Intelligence Group, which is an undercover information group, and I lived in Derry, which is the second city in Northern Ireland, up in the northwest of the country. And our job was to try and find active service units of the Provisional IRA and the Irish National Liberation Army, these sort of terrorist groups. And we were in one housing estate trying to find one of these ASUs that were going to move a rocket-propelled grenade launcher and some assault rifles from one housing estate called the Cregan, and they were going to take it to another housing estate called the Bogside, which was a big Republican area, and they were going to set up a shoot by overtaking a house, getting up into the bedrooms, and then attack soldiers as they drove along the main drag the other side of the Bogside. But what we didn't want to do was take the guys who were collecting the weapons, because we wanted to get them in the house, all of the ASU together, when they're getting ready to make the attack. So we got all of the members of the active service unit. So myself and another guy was up in the Cregan, and we were waiting for these guys, two guys, to pick up the weapons, which we saw. They put big bags, big sailbags, put them in the boot of the car, and then started driving down the hill towards the Bogside, where they were going to meet the other members of the ASU. So I jumped in my car, my mate it was with, he jumped in his car, and we followed them down to the Bogside. And the Bogside is got a lot of concrete bollards that have been put up by the residents to stop the army getting vehicles in there, a big sort of stronghold for the Republican movement. So the car stopped outside the Bogside estate. I parked up quickly, got out of my car, and then followed the guys who were walking into the estate with the bags, because what I wanted to do now was find the house where the shoot was going to come from, because we didn't know. So as I was going into these estates, when you're operating undercover, what you do, you have a mental picture of what you're doing. So you always have to have a purpose. And what happens is unconsciously you exude a confidence. That's the theory. So for me, I always used to say I was going to see my brother-in-law. Wherever I was going to see my brother-in-law. So in my head, I'm in the Bogside, I'm on my own, I've got a mate in the car, because he's not going to get out of his car now, because that's the rescue vehicle. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to see my brother-in-law, because you have to front out with the local population, because they don't know who you are. Doesn't mean to say they think you're an undercover soldier. You might have been from another terrorist group coming to shoot the opposition, because it's quite a violent town. So I've gone in, and you get looked at. There's kids called dickers who are paid to look for people who are unknown, but you just front that out. And I've been doing this job now for about 18 months, and sort of knew the Bogside fairly well. So I'm looking for these guys as they're moving around. I was just getting glimpses of them as they were moving through, because they'll do their anti-surveillance thing to make sure they're not being followed, and I've got to make sure that I don't get caught as I'm following them. So as I was moving through the Bogside, I was going to see my brother-in-law, who lives there, in my head. So I know where I'm going, and I've got a purpose. So I turned left after one of the blocks, and I landed up walking down an alleyway, which was totally unnormal. So everybody's going, well, what's he going down there for? Clearly he doesn't know where he's going, so clearly he's not part of this group, so clearly there's a problem, so we better check it out. But what I had to do, there's no way I'm now going to turn around and walk out, because I'll get fronted, and then there would be a firefight, because they're very nervous. So what I had to do was then walk down to the bottom of the alleyway, and then pretend I was going down there to have a piss. So I was facing the wall, going through the actions, unzipping, trying to urinate. I was hoping that I was, but that wasn't going to happen. So I was bluffing it, pretending that I was urinating, counting to 15. But behind me at the top of the alleyway, I could hear all the voices, because people want to know who I was. It was because they was unsure. And for me, that was the moment of that total lack of control. Because what I didn't want to do was look behind me, because that would give the game up. Because why would I look behind me? Because I'm going down there for a piss, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to go and see my brother-in-law. So count to 15, pretend that I'd finished, turn around and walk out and just front it, which lucky enough it worked, because again it's just lying to yourself and trying to convince yourself what you're doing is an everyday activity. But it was just those 15 seconds of facing the wall, dying to turn around to see what I might be turning around to, but knowing that I shouldn't. And for me, that was the worst moment I've ever had.